Hello everyone and welcome to Camp Literature League. My name is Chad Horner. Today I will be talking about C.S. Lewis's book titled The Screwtape Letters, but first I would like you to imagine hell, as Dante imagined it, where devils and Satan himself live, constantly whispering lies in the ears of human beings. In fact, this is what The Screwtape Letters was all about. It was published in 1942 as a piece of fiction by the Christian apologist and author C.S. Lewis. It is comprised of 31 letters, all of which are written by a senior demon in hell named Screwtape to his nephew Wormwood, who is a junior tempter. Screwtape is mentor to Wormwood, but only to aid in securing the damnation of a British man. This man is known only throughout the book as the Patient. Screwtape's methods are slow but steady. As he notes in letter 12, the safest road to hell is the gradual one, the gentle slope, soft underfoot, without sudden turnings, without milestones, without signposts. This book has been a revelation to the generations who have read it, because it reveals and sheds light on the inner workings of the human mind and heart. From a Christian perspective, it offers clues into the trials and tribulations of the spiritual realm. C.S. Lewis was born in 1898 in Belfast, Ireland, that's modern-day Northern Ireland. He began his literary career when he was a young man, educating students at Oxford University in England. He transitioned to several different universities and colleges. He was the first to be recognised as medieval and Renaissance lecturer at the University of Cambridge. He was extremely successful at teaching in these academic fields. Although he moved around England quite a lot, he never forgot his mother country. And the beautiful landscapes in Northern Ireland probably influenced many of his writings. Some of the descriptions from the land of his later children's series Narnia were strongly based off his memories, photos and names of the pretty countryside. He loved to write and began an informal discussion society with his friends, which they called the Inklings. His circle of friends included his brother Warne Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, Neville Coghill, Lord David Cecil, Charles Williams and Owen Barfield. Their comedic name, the Inklings, was a pun, referring both to the fact that they dabbled in ink and also that they did not have a clue as to what they were about. Later in life, Lewis wrote his most popular series, The Chronicles of Narnia, between 1949 and 1954. Most people view this series as children's books, but Lewis really wrote it for anyone who was a child at heart. He noted in a letter to a young admirer that he thought it was interesting that children seemed to realize exactly what the allegory in Narnia was, but grown-ups did not. He dedicated his earlier book, The Screwtape Letters, to his good friend J.R.R. Tolkien, later the famous author of the well-known and beloved The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings series. But Lewis didn't listen to his protests and went ahead with it anyway, because Tolkien found that the book was very disturbing, and the fact that he didn't appreciate it really suggested that he was totally against this book. But Lewis didn't listen to this. Interesting to note, Lewis didn't enjoy the Screwtape Letters and resolved never to write another one of these letters again. In the preface in the 1961 edition, he explains why. But although it was easy to twist one's mind into the diabolical attitude, it was not fun, or not for long. The strain produced a sort of spiritual cramp, all dust, girt, thirst and itch. Every trace of beauty had to be excluded. It would have smothered my readers if I had to prolong it. In letter 3, Screwtape writes to his nephew Wormwood on the subject of prayer. In the letter just before this one, the young man that Wormwood was in charge of, known only as the Patient, became a Christian. A good deal of the book is devoted to this man's struggles and triumphs in navigating his new life, as well as learning to really pray and avoid sin. Apparently this man has a rather difficult relationship with his mother, which Wormwood uses to his own advantage as instructed by Screwtape. Screwtape advises his nephew to first keep his, that is the man's, mind on the inner life, by focusing so entirely on the states of his own mind that he misses how his actions are causing a disconnect in his relationship between himself and his mother. The second piece of his advice was that he had to make sure that the prayers are always very spiritual, that he is always concerned with the state of her soul and never with her rheumatism. Thus he fails to see his mother as a whole person, and instead concerns himself with only fixing any of her actions that might irritate him, which he falsely labels sins, that she might be made right with God. This backfires though, because Christianity teaches that God looks at the heart, not just the outward actions of people, since he would be doing this for a selfish motive, as his mother's irritating actions should not be dubbed sins. He is not really praying for her, but for relief for himself. By thinking he is praying for the correct things, however, he can be tricked into thinking he is in the right, and therefore a vicious cycle can continue. Screwtape's third point is to work on the little everyday annoyances that irritate both the young man and his mother, and fix them in the minds of them both all the time, to such a level that the anticipation of these inevitable annoyances grows to hatred. As you may have guessed, hatred for the actions of the other person can easily turn into hatred for the other person, and this is Screwtape's goal, to ignite hatred between them both. The fourth and final piece of advice Screwtape gives is to make another destructive cycle between the man and his mother. His point is that sometimes when one is angry, the words one speaks in and of themselves are not offensive or likely to provoke anger, but the tone in which one says them can be very expressive of anger. Screwtape suggests that the young man should be convinced that his own words should be judged solely on the words themselves, not the tone, but that his mother should be judged by every little inflection, even to the point of oversensitivity to the tone. Furthermore, Screwtape notes that for this to work, that the man's mother should be convinced of the same thing with regards to herself. Thus, with these four pieces of advice, a great divide can grow between the man and his mother. So, the Screwtape Letters reveals how all of humanity has colossal shortcomings. Nearly everyone has double standards, as we think we should be judged in a certain way, very often much less than the judgment we inflict on our neighbours. The pride we have of ourselves blinds us more often than not, so we fail to see how our own mistakes go and stupidly think we are always in the right, all of the time, when in fact we are very far from it. When we are selfish or do not have compassion for others around us, this also deprives us of sensible perception. It isolates and blinds us, cutting off our relationships and our harmony with others, while we are unaware of the destruction of our selfishness or indifferences. These four shortcomings, double standards, pride, selfishness, and callousness, are extremely dangerous. If we are not careful, we will fall into a trap of thinking we are perfect all the time, while this is of course impossible and a complete lie that we are eager to believe. It will ruin our relationships and isolate us, while all the time pride tells us we are doing nothing wrong and it's everybody else's fault. It's their lack of insight or perception that keeps them from seeing how wonderful we really are. The Screwtape Letters explains to us exactly what our pride, selfishness and callousness will do for us, and further investigates the temptations of sex and gluttony. Perhaps this is why the book has caused controversy, as well as why J.R.R. Tolkien was so displeased when the book was dedicated to him. People don't always like to face the facts of their own shortcomings. They like to consider themselves flawless and without fault. This only proves C.S. Lewis's point, however, and for everyone who was disturbed and displeased by the book, generations of more readers found it to be very insightful and even life-changing. I highly recommend the Screwtape Letters to anyone who is interested. Your time will not be spent in vain. I both enjoyed and gained very helpful insights from this book. It is very much worth reading. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Goodbye.